Okay, welcome. Welcome. Let's see, switch to here. It's another Thursday. Glad you're here. Excited. I've got a confirmation that a lot of people I sent pins to, they've been delivered today, and I already just got a picture in of one of them that I'll show later on in the stream from David down in Texas. So that's exciting. Got a couple new spoke pencils. I've got some new blank materials. And I wanted to talk about the Natsu index card some because I was doing some podcast notes and planning on that earlier. And I thought that might be a good way to show how I've been tracking all that. And then also today was the release of episode 2 of season 2 of the DWRD Net Stationery Feed with Lisa Vaness. So far, it seems to be well received. It was a great conversation. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely check it out. But let's take a look at some stuff. Let me turn the music down a little bit more. It still is coming through a little bit more. Okay, so let's go to the overhead here. Hello to David, and hello to David, and hello to Mark. Good to see you all in the chat there. Okay, so let's start out with postcards. So it is NaCoWriMo, and over the last, there was one I forgot to show last week, and that was this one from Olive Octopus, who sent this from the Philly Pen Show. It was neat to get a Philadelphia there. You know, nice message. Cool. I love postcards. They're quick and to the point, and I sent out today, I think, 15 postcards, trying to make sure I'm keeping up with NaCoWriMo. I got a RoboCop postcard from Jason Nassi, who he also has a YouTube channel. It's newer, and he's kind of getting into it. So if you're not familiar with that, Jay Nassi, I believe, is Nassi, is the channel name. But a RoboCop postcard, I mean, how can you go wrong with that? And it looks like it's a cover of the original comic as the image. And then I got this one today from Dragon Drawer, and I don't know if he's on the stream yet or if he'll be here tonight, but there's a neat design. It's in metric system and whatnot, and then it's called Mappa M'Explori Andronella 2018, and then the description is in Spanish. But, you know, it's neat that NaCoWriMo, you know, being involved in it this year and trying to send stuff out and then getting stuff back in, that's just fun. So postcards, always good. And some of you, just from names, you probably have one on the way. Not everybody, because there's some I owe letters back to. So if you don't get a postcard, I am trying to stay caught up. So hopefully I'll get those out to you soon. So let's see. I'm trying to think of what best order to go in. And so let me talk about one thing I found today, or last night, over the last couple days. I picked up from, if you saw episode 1 of the DWRD Net Stationery Feed with Nick Dominguez, well, right after that was released, Gentleman Stationer had some new products in the pattern show up. So there's no longer just the Fillmore and Sinclair and the pin case. There's also the roll, like this roll. And then there's the, I don't remember the name of the, I think this is the koozie. And then there's also the roll. But this, if you're not familiar with the rickshaw, you know, you can kind of do it around, and it's meant to be carried like this. A fun little fact. So when I leave my home office at night and I want to go downstairs or something like that, I like to take more than one pen sometimes with my plotter. This is normally what goes down with me. So if I'm, you know, making notes or something, but this is a fun little fact. You can, with the band, you can kind of put that in there, and then it fits well for carrying multiple pins. So you've got different colors and options. So just a fun little fact. You know, you don't really see that or think about using this in that way. So just a fun little accident. And I do apologize. I'm going to have to drink some tea every so often during this. I don't have a cold, but I've got like the sinus stuff. We're in that false spring in Nashville where it was really cold, and now it's trying to play catch up and be warm, but it's not really. It was like 70 a couple days ago, and today it's in the 40s. So what kind of tea? It is and this is, I blame my wife. She bought some Trader Joe's Earl Grey tea forever ago. And I had some. I've been on a tea kick lately and drinking that. And in doing so, I really liked that. And then I tried like some twinings that we had, and I was like, I can't drink this anymore. So, you know, and then let me switch to the other camera just to. I've got my fountain pen Tracy Cullen mug. So if you're not familiar, Tracy Cullen does ceramics and, fun for that. But yeah, so I have one side of my nose that just does not want to cooperate with the rest of my body. So been working through that. So let's start by talking about the new spoke pencils, adding into my almost wheel worth of pencils now. So what I got are two more Model 7s, but I got them in a 0.9 millimeter and then the 0.3 millimeter. And then these are the smaller diameter. So this is my original 0.7. And let me zoom back out one level just to show these a little better. So 3 spokes. This one's the 10.5 millimeter, and these two are the 9. These two have the step tips, and then this one has the conical tip. And hey, Anne, good to see you, and Adeline. No, it's actually not loose leaf. It is just their tea bags. And as I went through the box that we had, I was like, okay, I'm drinking this because it's easier to have a kettle in like the little bathroom that attaches to my home office. So I was like, hey, next time you go to Trader Joe's, get some more boxes. So we've kind of stocked up a little bit. I have the stuff for loose leaf, but sometimes it's just easier to use the tea bag. Maybe I'll get to the point of loose leaf stuff, but yeah. So in the spoke pencils, I'm trying to use different lead sizes. I really enjoyed 0.7, which I never would have guessed. And the first pencil I got in 0.9, I didn't really like. Yeah, I didn't notice that either, Adeline, and I didn't pay attention at first. I was thinking it was the 7 from the Model 7, but it's actually the 7 for the lead size. So when I got the other two in, come on, zoom in properly. There we go. I was really surprised. So now I'm going to have to get a 5 and then just have, where I can have them all 4 in a row. Because I've been using pencils so much more. This is a neat way to have, you kind of take the pencil out of the equation to some extent. But they all have the knurled grips. I really love the spoke knurling. So I've been playing around with these. They just came in like a couple days ago, so I haven't had that much time to use them yet. Or I guess they came in like last week on Friday. Then we had pen club over the weekend, and then I spent time in the shop making some pens that I'll show later in the stream. So I haven't used these all that much, but now that it's been the work week, they've been on the desk and in the rotation. And so far the verdict is the 0.3. I'm sure it has its purpose. It's not my favorite. I think I like the thicker leads. So, it's still good to have at least something, because for some reason I had a brand new pack of 0.3 lead. I have no memory of where it came from in my other pencil stuff. So I already had lead for it. So they'll all get used. Now, I have enough pencils now that I'm not going to be able to use them all with the frequency, but I've started putting some of the ones that are not ones that I'm going to use on a regular basis, like to have some in the garage. So like some of the TWSBI plastic body ones are now garage pencils in the shop. So I have one at the sewing machine where I sew the pen cases, and one for marking down notes in the actual like lathe area and whatnot. So they're getting used. They're just not getting used with the same frequency, because that's one, downside of going into a rabbit hole of getting all sorts of options, is you can only write with one of them at a time. I'm not gifted to be able to write with one pen in each hand, or one writing instrument rather. So that's fun. And then I do like that with the different lead sizes, you get the different color containers. I know it's not the biggest deal in the world, but that's just neat. And then, I've got enough spoke zipper pulls now to probably put them on a good, because if I got 3 in here, I probably have like 10 or so of these zipper pulls. already have them on my rickshaw, bonsai, and some other things. So I'm gonna have to keep adding to the collection, I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna show this real quick, and this is not on one of the fancy buttons I have on my thing, but David in the chat, he sent a picture where his pin arrived today, David Persons. And this is one of the things that I made. So where did that scene go that has the picture that I made? That, what did I call it? I was literally doing this right before we started. So that's just a picture. And one note, these pins are not really made to post. They will kind of post. I've been doing just a gentle taper on them is what I'd call it. So they will kind of post on there, but I think a lot of these, except for the couple of pocket pins, they work better as a non-poster, but they still will hold on enough if that's how you prefer to write. But that's neat to see a pin that I've, made and now someone has in their hands that they're going to get to use. So that's a cool feeling. And then I know that Anne in the chat, she had 2 pins get delivered, one from a purchase and one from the YouTube channel kind of unofficial promo that came to be. And then I got shipping confirmation that everything I sent out last week has been delivered. So I look forward to seeing pictures and those getting used, and hopefully everybody enjoys them. And it's a neat feeling to know that those are now sent out. And I'm getting close that after the couple of pins I have tonight, I think I only have 2 of the initial 12 that I was doing as kind of a unofficial, unannounced promo that are left. And then I'll start making, as I find materials and whatnot, just making other pins and then putting them up for sale or stuff like that. So speaking of, though, I did get in from PapaJ Studio. If you remember the pin that I made for Olive Octopus Lisa, it was in a really cool material that I didn't really know was PapaJ at first. But I liked it so much. I talked to Luke and I got him to figure out, because it was one of his earlier pours, but he had a stick left and was able to research the recipe. So now so it's funny you say that, Adeline. I might have bid on 2 more typewriters today in auctions. One to hopefully get the missing parts I need for the Corsair Deluxe that I got a while back that is missing a couple of pieces. And if not, it looks like the current one is in better condition. So then the one I have could become a parts machine, because I really want that teal typewriter to work for some reason. I don't know why. And then there was another one that was just a cool, kind of olive drab Smith Corona. That both of these auctions have time left, and I'm limiting myself to what I would be willing to spend on sight unseen things from the internet. But so far the shop goodwill has been pretty accurate. So no more typewriters yet, but that can always change. But these blanks I'm looking forward to, because if you remember the pictures, it has, when this turns down, it's got the kind of lightning bolt glacial look, the different colors of blue and shades of blue that will come out. So I'm really looking forward to doing another one of these, just to see. This will be one of the first times really that I've made a second pin out of a similar material, to see what the results end up as. So I don't know what I'm going to do with all 6. I don't know if I'm going to try and make all 6 and do it in a batch, or just do like 2 or 3 and then leave the others for a rainy day. And then I am glad to have some PapaJ stickers, because having interviewed Luke before, the PapaJ logo, and then I really like that one, the drawing of his wife Peanut doing the finials and the pin work. It's a neat little bit of art. Oh, Christy Needle Girl, I'm glad yours arrived too. It's cool to see all these. So definitely when you get a chance, take some pictures. I want to see all these getting used and whatnot. And I'll try and collect them and make like a image thing actually it won't be next week. I was just looking at the calendar before the stream. I will be at the Connuga convention next weekend in Chattanooga. My wife is going for some writing stuff, and I'm just going to be an attendee where last year when I went, I drank a lot of tea. Oh, great. So we got Aaron, Christy, David, and Ann all had their pins. And then I heard from Chris earlier today that he happened to have his delivered to his office and he was using it. He had some ancient copper and already got it inked up. So I hope you all enjoy them. I hope they work well. And if you ever have any issues, reach out to me, please. I think they're all going to serve you well, but you never know. Some of these materials are fickle, and if there's something that needs to be improved or fixed, I will do my best. But speaking of pins, so I wanted to talk through. I've been trying to. This was one I showed a couple weeks ago. The first one that I did the standing up straight with, and then I've been trying to make sure that I get the flats even better. And it's harder than I thought it would be to get a flat side that's perfectly parallel. So I've been working through that. I think I've solved it, but that's just something I'm really liking, the flat ends. It's not going to be on every pin because a couple of the ones I'll show here in a second have completely round ends, but I like having the variety. So in terms of that, let's see. Let me start with, and an eyedropper update. This is the one that I had eyedropper before last week. Still going strong. And today I finally had the first almost drip of ink. So for a full week and using it quite a bit, because if you think about it, I filled this fairly full last week and it's half empty. So it's been getting used. But I finally had, and it's probably because I was doing a lot of writing where it probably just warmed up the ink just enough, because I was holding it a little bit further back, right where the ink kind of pools inside here. A little drip I saw in the feed that I was able to use a tissue and just kind of wipe off before it became a blip on the paper. But yeah, I'm really liking the eyedropper pen. I never would have guessed that that's not something I cared for, but now between what I've been using today, between the Skogsy Elved and then this one that I made, that's 2 eyedroppers of the 3 pens I've used to write today. So really liking how that's going. And I'm also really loving this pen case, by the way. This is my first one of the Nock, and I think for those of you who are more Nock familiar, this is the koozie. Is that the correct name for this one? And Christy, I'm glad it looks great. Especially yours with the raspberry beret material, with it being a D squared material and you having some other pins of Daryl's. That's a neat little addition. But let's talk the pins that were made this last weekend. So starting off with one that I don't know what I'm doing with yet, and I was talking to Olive Octopus on Discord, and we had debates of what the color on this would be considered, because to me it kind of looks like a storm map. But it also looks like potentially the predator heat vision when they are seeing something in their scope. But it does kind of look like a weather map where, like, you got the rain and then it's getting real in the middle there. But this was, I think, a Starry Night Resins, and you can see this one is a perfectly round end. Well, as perfectly round as I can get with a file and then sanding. And then the flat bottom, but I thought this was a neat, just something different in terms of shape. So that one was fun, and this one is not yet committed to any purpose. So I don't really know what this one's going to go to, but I have found on this one, while it's triple start, it really looks best if you get it on the right start so that the red lines up, so it blends. Kind of like the one I was showing that I eyedroppered. You start the purple at the purple, then it will show correctly. The 6-pin koozie, okay. Yeah, it also, I could see that. Phoenix or Basilisk, the red part, but then you turn to the other side and it's like, like if you just saw a picture of this pen like this, oh, it's a nice blue and green pen. And then this pen, it's like, oh, it's all the reds and oranges. So it's like an interesting, like, down the line split. And then to get the yellow that happens to perfectly, divide it. Hey, George, good to see you. Yeah, so this one was one of the 3 I made this weekend. Well, technically 4, I guess. And then up for 2 more pins that will be going out to as the initial 12. This one is going to be going to Rahul. And this, I think I was asking Nick Pasquale if this was one of his materials, and he said it looked like a dirty pour of one of his copper materials, but it almost looks like a granite countertop. You know, like if you go your house or shopping for granite, it's kind of what it looks like. And it was a neat mixture. And then I did the round top on it, and then Rahul opted for the gold tone nib in it. And I think that's going to be a nice looking combo. So that, and there is some kind of goldish flake in it, that actually some almost gold and silver flake in it. And this one is showing decently on camera, but it looks terrible in photos because it's so vibrant that the photos are all dark. So this one's one definitely that seeing in person makes a difference, but the camera is doing decent now compared to some of the photos I took. But that's number 2. And then I haven't seen Tiber Swimmer in the chat yet, but this is the one that will be going to her. And I love the name of this blank. This is Starry Night Resin Purple People Eater. And it was just a cool looking like blacks and purples and a couple different shades of purple in there. And I didn't plan this at the start. In your notebooks. I am not, David. I'm not familiar with those. One thing I've learned though, just with, notebooks from places that aren't stationery stores, they can be really hit or miss. I know there's a YouTube channel, I think her name is Seaweed Kisses, that the Purple People Eater, from the song reference from back in the day. But what I was saying, David, is you have to kind of look at the tag, because there's certain papers, like you get one book and it might be great, and then the next one will be the same cover but made in a different factory, and it might be terrible. So I know with the Moleskines, like the thicker Moleskines, if they're made and they have a certain label, then they were great for fountain pens, great for all the journaling, planner group pen set. But if they didn't say that, they were terrible. So I'll have to try and track one of those down and try it out at some point. But I'm not familiar with that one. And if someone is familiar, throw it in the chat. It's really going to be hit or miss. So if you found one, David, that's good, take a picture. And when you're in Walmart next time, make sure the label is the exact same. Like if it says made in Vietnam, get the one that's in Vietnam, because I think I'd have to go find the video, but in the Seaweed Kisses, I think the ones that they said were the ones that were good were like, label said it was environmentally friendly paper, recycled something. So they did the research and went through the process to figure out what the identifying marks are to make sure you're getting the good paper, so that way you're not caught off guard. But yeah, so this one is going to Tiber Swimmer. This one's going to Rahul. This one is just, it has no purpose yet. It will find its purpose. And then one pen I don't have to show because Beth took it with her to the office today is I made her a Valentine's Day pin. And the best way to describe the material is, think of the kids' Valentine's Day cards with all the pinks and reds and whites that you could mix together. And that's what the material looked like. So I thought that was a fun thing to make, just something to add on once I kind of got these others done. So I made it between Monday night and Tuesday night. Because doing one pin and not doing a batch, it's a lot easier to get through the process. And I needed to do some finish work on this next one. So I'll have to get a picture, because I didn't even take a picture of it because I was trying to do it while she was out running errands both nights. And then last night I was like, well, it's going to be done. And if she wanted, I know she likes to take it into the office because her coworkers like seeing all the different pins and things, because I think she's converted multiple coworkers to the fountain pen world. But this is an interesting material, and this is an eel and anchor blank that Joe from Gentleman Stationer had sitting around. He's like, hey, do you want to see what you can do with it? And I was like, sure, why not? Now, it looks hazy. I have not done the internal polishing on this yet, but to me, this looks like Swedish fish. If you're not familiar with Swedish fish, it's like a gummy candy type thing, but the red is a very unique color. And this reminds me of Swedish fish. But I think this is going to be really cool once it get a chance to do the internal polish, because when you drill out, you can see the finials are nice and clear. And this bottom end reminds me of the pen I did for that first internal polish for Nick Dominguez. But you can see, and let me see if I can get it on camera. You can see the waves going through that piece. So once the insides are polished, so you can kind of see through it, I think this is going to be a really cool looking pen. So now that I know how to do the internal polishing, doing some of these, more unique materials is going to be more fun, because it's a... Hey, Rahul, we were just talking. I'm glad to see you here. Hope you're enjoying your cruise, but just was talking about your pen. There you get to see it in better light, because I know it was explaining that the pictures made it look really dark, but that'll be yours coming your way. And I'm going to ship out hopefully this one and the one for Tiber Swimmer tomorrow. So they will be headed to their respective Texas and Arkansas locales. So looking forward for y'all to receive these, and I'm glad that all the other ones arrived and in one piece. So far the Postal Service is doing me well. But yeah, this was an interesting pen, and this one still needs some finish work, because you can see it still has the slightest little dot in the center from the tailstock of the lathe, and little things like that. I've been trying to make sure that, because even the pen I showed last week that actually Anne now owns, it was almost ready to ship, and then I noticed there was the slightest little divot, so it got a little bit more sanding and a rebuffing just to be sure that it didn't have that remnant. So trying to work through and make sure each pen gets a little bit better each time. But yeah, if you're not familiar, or if you don't, definitely look at the cases and these designs too. You can get through Gentleman Stationer. Nick's art, I now have all three colors, and I really like them. For the chroma shading inks to draw that, and for it to come through as well as it does on the material is kind of ridiculous. So Rickshaw is doing something right with whatever fabric printers they're using, but that's been fun. So let's talk Natsu. So these are my two current boxes of the Natsu cards that I use to pretty much organize the podcast guest. And I did a video a long time ago on index card or fountain pen friendly index cards, and that's where I kind of found the Natsu. And I've still been using these. I don't use index cards all that often, but when I'm planning out the episodes, so there's one card for each episode of the podcast. So you got all of season 1, and then, so this is just season 1, and then season 2 I have in the next little divider. But what I've been doing on a lot of these, let's grab we'll grab the PapaJ one. So like when I do the recording, I do an initial contact, reaching out to them. Hey, are you interested in doing a recording? And then I'll write some questions that I send in advance. And I've got a little FAQ of how the process works, and I'll send them. And this is just how I've been using to keep track. And one quirky thing that I noticed today is which I have multiple iterations of these cards, they're not all the same. They're slightly different. Some of them have an extra, let me find one of the different ones here. Okay, so you can see like on this episode 14 card at the top, it doesn't have the little date field. And then on the episode 15 card, it's got an extra white line at the top and then a date field. So for what I'm using these for, it's not that big of a deal, but I thought that was interesting that they have the same front to-do lists. Everything is the same, but the back was different. So that was a observation I had today. But yeah, have been handy. And then I interviewed Addie from Stationary Stack, which will be next week's podcast episode that'll release next Thursday morning. And one of her products made me kind of think about the stand that she sells, because these boxes are meant to do like this, where you can have it as a stand here. Well, she has and I forget the name of that one. I know the Alfie is the tray, and then there's the Honcho, which is like the single pin stand. It's the Amigo. It's your friend because it's the friendly pin and then it holds your card. And it's a wood version of this where you can have the slot. So I was thinking about that. Maybe I should look into getting one of those. So then as I'm doing the recording, I can kind of have my notes. Because with talking into a prompter like this, and I know on a stream, I'm not looking into it as much as I would for the interviews. It's nice to be able to keep eye contact on the screen, but then also be able to look down while they're talking to make sure I've got my questions. Oh, Dragon Drawer, that's cool. The Amigo, it looks interesting, and I'll be really excited when that episode comes out next week because there's some sneak peeks of some new products that are in the works that I definitely want to add to. There's a couple of them that are going to be a must-have, and some that will be once I can get a chance to get one, because as we talk about, a lot of her stuff sells out quickly with the batch release process. So yeah, so I just thought I wanted to, who else is using the Natsu cards? I know a lot of us shop with Gentleman Stationer, and this was kind of a push, and the fountain pen friendly index cards are kind of if you need them, you find the right ones or find the use case. I think Olive Octopus, I don't know if you ended up still using these as kind of a attempt at a 2026 planner replacement where you kind of have the smaller version or maybe the horizontal type, because I never did get the horizontal version. And if you're not familiar with those, it's the same kind of to-do list but on the long way. Okay, yeah, so Christy, you have some and haven't got a chance to use them yet, so I'm going to take a sidestep real quick, and just since I see Lydia's Designs, aka Tiber Swimmer, here to show this again. The Purple People Eater, which was the name of the blank. So this will be headed out tomorrow, hopefully, if I can get it all boxed up to head your way. But yeah, I really like the purple, and then I didn't think about it till after the fact, because I think you had posted on your Substack that you added a Purple Me Plus, so it'll be a nice addition, a purple and purple mix. So neat little side thing, but I wanted to show that because I saw that you're on the chat now. So back to Natsu, these have been handy. Yeah, on and off while working on the layout. Yeah, I wish I was using them more, but this is, one thing I found is I was buying new stuff to try it out, and then some stuff didn't have its purpose initially, and this kind of is where these have ended up as their purpose. And the only reason I had a second box is I was already pretty much full, because they are thicker cards. So I don't have another use for these, but I'm curious if one will come up, because they're so versatile. And I kind of wish in hindsight, if I would have thought about different seasons and whatnot, I would have gotten one of the other color boxes instead of a second black one of the orange ones or blue ones. So maybe once I get to the point of needing a third box, I'll differentiate to another color, or possibly find a different storage after the fact way to store these. I don't know if I could find a punch, but these would almost possibly fit in one side of my Rolodex, which I need to do that on a stream at some point. I have the big double-sided Rolodex. Okay, Alivocto, folding them in half, and since my wallet is a mini 5 plotter, I already have the paper in there, so if it's something I know I'm going to need with me, I've been using that to write in. And then I normally almost always have my Bible size plotter with me, because that's my to-go calendar. So I have to think about if there's other uses that I can incorporate these in. And then I like the Natsu desk tab or desk pads. Those have been good to use for all the fountain pen stuff. So, okay. So, and if you weren't on earlier, okay, hey, David, 5 months as a member. When a pin swaying back and forth, it's a pendulum. Nice. So okay, Dragon Drawer, you use one daily and you put it in the weeks. And you have this year's weeks. Is the paper better, or did you just use writing utensils that are not as paper dependent? Because I know when I tried the weeks last year, it was a disappointment for me. But hopefully you're having a better experience with the weeks, or maybe you got one of the ones that wasn't affected in the same way. Okay. So let's see. What else was I talking about? So IncoWrimo, I sent out about 15 postcards today, and I mentioned this early on in the stream. So some of you will be getting a postcard coming in. Some of you I owe some letters back to. And one thing this next weekend when I'm at the convention, I'm going to take one of my typewriters with me. Because why not be the guy setting up at a sci-fi convention with a typewriter and fountain pens? Find a good corner, and then I'm sure that'll generate people asking questions. So why not? I haven't decided which one. It'll be one of the smaller ones just to have it be more portable. I'd love to take the Olivetti, but it's a portable that's not that portable compared to a couple of the others. So we'll have to figure out which one. But I plan on using that time to get caught up on letters. So I will be taking a bunch of the A5 Graphilo, some yu-sari, the A5 envelopes, some stamps, some postcards, all the above, and just getting caught up either through typing or writing. Make sure I'm caught up on everybody in terms of letters, and then hopefully send out some new ones. And then, so if you've written me and I haven't written you back, you're on the list. As long as, well, let's assume you're on the list unless I completely forgot that I got a letter from you, in which case feel free to send a message and say, hey, did you get my last letter? Because that'll make sure I have it on the list. I know I owe Lydia a return, and then one of the Davids I owe a return. So those are on the list that I know of, and then others as we go. But who else is doing IncoWrimo? I did get a card from Dragon Drawer I showed earlier, with the cool design. And then I got one from Olive Octopus, which was technically Philly and right before IncoWrimo, but I got it in February, so I'm counting it towards your numbers, Lisa. If you're keeping track, it counts. And then I got the RoboCop one from Jason Nassi. So it's neat to get postcards kind of coming in. Yep. Dragon Drawer, I got yours. It came in today, so that was in the one piece of mail that was not junk mail when I went out to the mailbox earlier today to put my postcards in. I was sending, I think, from looking at how many stamps, because I finished my first sheet of postcard stamps today, I think 15 went out. Most of them are Burbs, because I got the big box of Burb postcards, so I was just randomly selecting. And then I did, as I was looking through, I was looking for a certain bird, but I couldn't find it. I did pull a couple ones out that are special case birds, like the bald eagle, the American crow, the common grackle, because I was gonna look and see if the uncommon grackle username, who's normally on some of like Brad's Twitch streams, was in the database for letters, because I thought that would be funny to send the common grackle postcard to the uncommon grackle username. But that's how my brain works. But I'm liking these bird ones. I want to find some quirkier postcards. I did send Brad a disappointing affirmation postcard, which I think will be funny for IncoWrimo. But I've liked participating this year. I didn't really know about it last year, to be realistic. I was just in the return of figuring out how YouTube worked and a little bit jumping in way too far. Okay, so Christy, you're doing Inko That's cool. And then obviously Dragon Drawer, and then I know Olive Octopus was talking about that as we were talking earlier about the Swedish fish conundrum. So be interesting to see. And then I'm going to try and, for people I'm sending letters to, you might get a letter that's like 2 pages where one is Grafilo and one is yu-sari or one is Tomoe or one is Krina. Trying to alternate papers so that if you don't have a paper, and if there's a paper you're curious about that you know I have, send me a message and I will try and write your letter on that paper. I've sent out a couple of sheets of random paper as people have asked about it, just to send, write a note on one. And then as I've been sending out the pens, I've really loved these, what's it called? The bullet journal or bullet jotter paper and the Canopus. It's just been I don't know if there at least it wasn't a bird in the box, Christy. I don't know if there's an uncommon grackle, but I have to assume there is, because bird names, if you really take some time to read through them, there's some odd bird names. I mean, I assume they were named in a different time, but some of the names now are just funny. But I really like this. This has become my desk pad lately, is this Canopus bullet jotter, because it's just perfect enough to write a quick note to fit in a box for mailing a pen, and it shows inks well and colors well. So really liking this, but also this might become my go-to paper for pencils. The texture on this is just great with all these mechanical pencils that I seem to keep acquiring. I mean, there might be 2 more headed my way from Vanessa now that they're carrying roto rings, and they had a green one and a gray one. So, there's still room in my toolbox. So my theory is I'm still good for my pencil toolbox. There's still room for more. So have those coming, and then I got some other papers, some more Raymay A5. That's what I've been using in my work A5 plotter. And, just to have some refills, because, I'm glad that I'm using stuff, and I've also been using the Krina Spark paper a lot more. And I know I've talked about that in the past, but it has been great. That's what's in my Shiranami plotter that I was showing earlier that I take with me downstairs when I'm done for the day in my home office. And that's what I've been writing out, handwriting out the questions for the upcoming podcast interviews. And it's been great. And it's a thinner paper, and that's what I find interesting, because lately I've been really enjoying the thicker, like the yu-saris and the Grafilos. But there's something about that Krina paper, because I was never I appreciate Tomoe, but I was never the biggest user of it, because writing with extra fine nibs, normally you're not seeing that. But I've been using both of my recently ground Kadachis a lot more, and those are really, they get that variation. So if you're kind of writing questions and not, for me, doing intentional small printing, that it's really nice how that's showing and kind of flowing across the page. So that's been a pleasant surprise. I knew I liked it initially, and that's why I ordered some more, but that's just been fun to see, to keep experiencing it and getting a new perspective each time. No, thanks for popping in, Rahul. And like I said, enjoy your cruise wherever your destination is today. I really appreciate you popping in from the cruise ship wherever you are. That's really cool. Oh, thanks, Dragon Drawer. Yeah, I love talking to Lisa. We talked for another probably 45 minutes when we were done recording, about Arkansas Pen Show coming up. And, for those who aren't familiar, I actually helped them with some of the back end stuff for their website. At times, if needed, someone who speaks tech to kind of help out, translate the stuff. But Yeah, this Krina paper, you know, like it shows, and I know the lighting is not going to be the best. Let me try zooming in here. Because at some point I've already, hinted that I want to have Brad as a guest. I was writing out some questions for some in advance, but like this is the Mont Blanc Enzo Ferrari, and it shows well on there. And if you've seen my writing before, this is much larger than I would normally write, but I was trying to do it, to get it done just so I didn't forget the questions I was writing with or I was thinking of. Rena or Corona? Krena, Crena. It's the paper that Me Plus sells. You can see it here. I can't zoom in anymore, really, but Crena. And currently, it's only available through the Me Plus website, through some AliExpress, and there's a store in Singapore. And through the Me Plus, you can only get it punched. So I wish I could find some like loose leaf A5 that is not punched, because I think that's a little bit more flexible. But for how I've been using this, it's working well in here. And so you can see it's a thin paper. It's 50 GSM, but it's marketed as the Chinese Tomoe. And I think that's pretty accurate. It comes in, this one is a grid version. This one's the dot version. That one's also dot. So you can get it in blank, dot, or grid. And you can see the grid is so light, you don't even really see it, because I can barely see it holding it here. And I know the lighting. So if I hold it and kind of make it dark, you can kind of see like in the shadow. But that's one thing I've really appreciated is with the dots or the grids, it's a really light grid. Yeah, David, I'm a little bit torn because I like having a lot of pages, but as small as I write, it takes me forever to finish a notebook. And like I was just thinking today, I bought recently from Gentleman Stationer when he got in more of the current journal I'm using, which is what is it? I just blanked on what it is, but it's got the cool, let me zoom this out a little. It's got like the fabric covers on it. And this is where I keep my journal with all the stickers. But this is the current one I'm using that has kind of the houndstooth fabric cover. But I don't think these say in here in any way what they are. I think they're the Kakamori. Thank you for pulling the word out that I couldn't think of. No, David, thanks for stopping in. Hope you enjoy the pin. Hope it serves you well. For all of you who got pins, please give feedback in the Discord or things like that. And if you're not a channel member, there is a Discord that you can, if you become a channel member, you can get access to, that kind of building a good little conversation base in there. But, definitely throw pictures in and feedback, because that's just a cool feeling. But I picked up a couple more of these and some other covers. But, if you think of like looking at some of these pages, how tiny I write, it can take me forever to get through. So I've started this book here in May of 25, and it took me all that time to get to here. And I started doing stickers and stuff like that to take up some of the space, which, random plug, that's a Lydia's design sticker there, since I was flipping through. And then the previous page is sumo wrestlers fighting, because why not? Or like the Vanessa sticker, a Gentleman Stationer, an Olive Octopus sticker, an Eel and Anchor. So I've been putting stickers in to help take up some, real estate, but there's only so much you can do. So trying to work through, and I got the Arkansas Pin Show sticker, which I don't know the details yet, but I was voluntold today that I will be hosting one of the roundtables at the show. So I don't know what I'm going to be talking about yet or anything, but that's the third weekend in March in Little Rock, and I'm looking forward to that. And then after talking to Lydia's Designs, who's also a typewriter person, we're going to do an unofficial type in the lobby of some sort. I'm planning on taking a typewriter or two with me to just put out and let people use. And, there's a lot of people who've either it'll bring back memories of when they were younger and they had to use them, but there's probably a lot of people who've never used one, and that's just another way to play with toys. Why not? So, but that'll be fun. I'll have to figure out what the setup is for the round table. Last year, Olive Octopus and I kind of got I got volunteered the night before because they needed more, and I had no idea what I was going to do. So luckily, Lisa was coming the next day, and I sent her a message, "Hey, can you help do a table?" And she has her magical bag of, she could pretty much do an ink panel, with her pen club bag, and she was able to bring some stuff and did kind of a swatching, talking through ink stuff. So this is nice having some advanced notice of. Oh yeah, we were voluntold. Last year I was told that at the restaurant the night before, like, "Hey, we need you to do a round table." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I can figure something out." And luckily it all worked out. It was fun, and I think the venue is going to be better for that this year, and there's going to be a little bit different way of planning it that I think is going to end up being more organized. It was fun regardless, but there were so many people kind of coming through the stations that we started out, everybody had a seat. By the time the last group got there, there was like, you almost kind of felt like you were a zoo exhibit, 'cause there were so many people standing around and like a um no, I've seen your pin bag, Olive Octopus. I know that you could literally probably host a full pony painting or ink swatching class at the drop of a hat, because that's just stuff you carry with you for pen club, and if people have questions you can help answer or educate. So I love that. That was great. And that's why I was like, this, she already has the stuff with her. I can almost guarantee, with letting her know, hey, if there's anything else you might need to bring, and that worked out well. So I think this year will be fun to kind of help. And then I don't know how it's going to work yet, but I'd like to record an episode or do a live stream while there. And I've been talking to Chad to see if they have, a slot or something. I know for some people it's going to be hard for them to get away from their table to do a kind of recording / panel during the middle of the show, but we're going to see what our options are. So there might be something, or I might try and do a unofficial recording after the fact, with somebody, or maybe multiple somebodies, because I think I will have the ability to have 4 people at once with the mixer I have and the microphone. So we'll see how that all works out, but looking forward to it. It'll be, figure it out as you go. Everybody has a plan until you get hit in the face. So we'll see what happens, and we'll make it work in some way or another. But yeah, I'm trying to think. And then we're still slated as of now to go to the Atlanta show, but to be honest, I haven't booked the hotel yet because it's non-refundable, and it was just odd. So I have a feeling there'll still be a way to get a room closer to, and it seems like they're starting to update vendor list and some of those things. So it does seem like the assistance this year is kind of making the website a little bit more usable and updated and some of those things. So that, with it being back-to-back weekends, we're waiting for this next weekend trip to test out a new dog sitter, because our previous one stopped doing dog sitting. That's also going to factor in. We'll figure out something for Arkansas, because that's already planned and booked. But if hopefully it doesn't have to get scrubbed. But Atlanta is kind of it's written in not ink, it's written in dark pencil at the moment. But I look forward to hopefully getting to go to both, and because I don't plan on really purchasing pins. Well, I say that, I'm sure there will be something, but I want to look for materials more. I think that's going to be more of my focus, of finding some new materials to play around with, because it's a whole new world of shopping for what you might want to make, but then still getting supporting other makers and stuff too, because to be realistic, that's how I kind of got to where trying to make them. I liked the maker pins that I was getting, so I'm sure I'll still end up with something at one of the 2 shows, if not both, but we'll see how that ends up. And I know Olive Octopus, you're going to Arkansas, and Dragon Joy, I saw you talk about an 8 hour drive. It's Arkansas is fun, but I don't know if it's an 8 hour drive fun, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't want to lead you astray. It's a smaller show, it's a friendly show, it's a good hangout show, but it is a smaller vendor list. So depending on what you want to get out of a pin show, you know, you'd have a good time, but that's a lot of travel for that kind of show, if that makes sense. So, you know, no, we are using a referral of someone that Beth works with has who helps breed dogs. Our dogs are not easy dogs, like medicines and, different things like that. Hey, Scotty H, I saw you comment on the Lisa video today. Definitely, if you see me, I'm pretty recognizable. Say hi. That'd be neat to Christy. Well, Atlanta may be dog friendly. Our dogs do not travel well. Well, Dragon Door, we all say we're not going to buy more pins, but we also are realistic that if the right opportunity comes, it's like my Elved. I hadn't planned on buying it, but when I happened to open my phone and saw that there was a release in 2 minutes, of course I went to a site and bought one. Yeah, the dogs are not Atlanta friendly. Like one of them, she's allergic to grass. And now that stuff is going to kind of hit or miss, she's like, it's a thing. And then Starbuck, she was born where she doesn't produce tears. So she has to get eye drops multiple times a day. And, in her one eye that is left, we don't have starter dogs. Our vet, because when Beth and I met, at one point we had 5 dogs and then a different set of 5 dogs, but some of the seniors over time have, crossed the bridge. But our current dogs, they need, I would not feel confident going to Rover or something like that for someone who has to be able to do the medicine stuff. Yeah, and Chrissy, that makes sense. I know you have animals as well that you have to deal with, and that's challenging for with Atlanta and Arkansas being the closest regional shows to Nashville area, within drivable ish distance with an asterisk, depending on like I was saying, what your goal is for the show. That's challenging for back-to-back weekends, because even for us, that's why I'm like, Atlanta is, we could make it a day trip, but then that's a really long day. So we'll figure something out. And I think you should drive Jean-Claude Van Damme. I think that would be interesting to see. Because you need to have, and I mentioned this a long time ago, you need to have like a riding setup in your van, or where you can just have, because if you're doing van life-esque for future travel and whatnot, it needs to have a riding area that has dedicated stationary for the van life, because no one's really doing that, so you can optimize the space to have a pin storage and a book weight and paper storage, possibly get another Zoila, or if you're not currently using your Zoila, get a Zoila for Jean-Claude Van Damme to go in the van. St. Louis, I honestly don't know, but that's one that later in the year when that comes around, I've never been to St. Louis, and I think that would be a fun show to just attend. I think it's probably, and Lisa might know, I've never really looked at St. Louis in terms of time. The other shows that I'd like to go to this year, I'd like to go to DC, but I just don't think it's going to work timing wise. But St. Louis and Dallas are ones that I'd like to possibly try and go to. 5.5 to 6. Yeah. And, once again, it depends on dog situation. And then if I know Beth has some author event she's going to where I will be here with the dogs. And so we might be able to flip flop and, figure something out. But, I want to go to more of the shows like the St. Louis's or the Dallas that's regional-esque, in that region probably gets larger every year of people who are going to them regularly. And there's a lot of the people I know in Texas who are going to go up to Dallas and stuff like that. Starting to get to know some of the San Antonio Pin Club people because I'm in their Discord because my work trip that got canceled. And eventually, if I end up having to go down to San Antonio for work, getting to meet some more of them. And I know some of them go to Arkansas, and there's other people who you interact with on a regular basis online. Yeah, that would be perfect for the van life. Oh no, definitely, Chrissy. If you're in town, we have another shop to play in now. We got to see Nick's shop last time, but now I have one where we can play around with making a pin or something. And then I'd like to make it. I grew up in Houston. At some point, I'd like to make it down there just to visit little craft place and drum ghouls because I wasn't into pins when I lived there. And let's be realistic, I lived far enough away from drum ghouls that would be a couple hour drive with Houston traffic to get there probably from where I lived. So it would be a dedicated trip. So yeah, those are on the list. We'll see. But I know as of right now, Arkansas is confirmed. The hotel's booked. Going an extra day early to, go to Vanessa the day before. Like I said, since I helped them out with some stuff, and it's kind of nice to get there a day early to settle in before, if you're going to be busy attending the show. And, the older, as I get older, the more likely adding a day either on the front end or the back end or both when possible happens for trips because, I'd much rather not be rushed and just get there and have a chance to chill. And that's a perfect thing at a pin show because there's going to be other people who are getting in early because they're vending or things like that. So you get to hang out or have a dinner with people of the calm before the storm or something like that. So really looking forward to that. It was a great time last year, and that was the only show I went to last year. And this year it's a different perspective and it's going to be a different venue. And I know a lot more people through having done the YouTube channel and just being more active in the stationary community. So I think it'll be a different experience. And then, trying to help volunteer in ways to help you do a panel of some sort or do the round tables and stuff. It's going to be fun. So hopefully I'll get to run into some of y'all who I don't actually already know. I just know screen names. If you're going to be at the shows, definitely Pinsmith. That still kind of blows my mind, Mark, that I'm making pins. I'm not at the point where I'm going to have a table at a show or anything, but it still kind of catches me off guard a little bit. But yeah, I guess I am looking down at the 5 sitting in front of me here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to just the pin show season as a whole, because if nothing else, you get to see people sharing what they got, what they're excited about, what they picked up, and then just seeing all the different, variety of options, the materials, the styles, the nib grinds and stuff like that, because that I do plan on getting in Arkansas at least 1 or 2 more Kadachis. I've really been loving using them. And so I want to have more nibs to be able to shuffle around through pins. And don't know about any other specialty grinds, but definitely another Kadachi or 2 because it's such a versatile nib. And then we'll see what else from there. And then I wanted to get more, besides materials, more papers, seeing what other options, because I have an order from Vanessa coming in, but sometimes I don't know if you're like me, I need to see stuff or like put my hands on it to like feel texture and whatnot. I remember when I used to do sci-fi convention costuming and prop building stuff, I'd walk through the fabric store and I'd have to touch every single piece of fabric. It's like, nope, that's not the. Then you find the one. It's like, oh, okay, that's the one there. And then I'm excited because somebody who's going to be a guest, I don't have them scheduled yet, they vended Orlando last year, and I met them at the Matthew Chin nib grinding event at Gentleman Stationer the day before Nashville froze over for a long weekend. And Diana of Moss and Maple, it's a mother-daughter leatherwork journal cover shop. She and they, I guess, are vending Arkansas, and then I think Atlanta as well, she said. And they're Memphis based. So I have friends in Memphis, and Memphis, for some reason, doesn't have a pen club. So now that means I know my friends plus someone else who they both want a pen club. So I've got to get the introductions made so they can make a Memphis pen club, because that's another than, remote option to go visit and hang out with other pen people who are close enough. Yeah, Christy, they will be at, Diana said that they're going to be at Vending Arkansas for the first time. So excited for them. And then I think they have a couple others. So I'm looking forward to doing that interview. I have the questions written. We're just at the point of trying to get that scheduled. And then I'm also at the point of working on scheduling with Coralie, who does Cora Creations, or now runs the creative. She has a stationery store that's more journal type stuff in Nashville. So, Nashville's doing something right. We've got multiple physical locations opening in the stationery world, and that started online, and they're getting enough traction to open physical stores. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Creative Corner Nashville. Thanks, Mark. I couldn't think of it. I was saying the words, but just not in the right order. But I look forward to that because we've been there once, and I know Beth went and did a vision board class there. They do a lot of like in-person classes or journaling events and stuff. So, a different style of the stationery hobby. So it's just neat to have that, the dichotomy of someone who's all pens or someone who's all journal. And something I talked about in the interview with Lisa, if you haven't seen it yet, Lisa Vaness, the planner and the stationery, the worlds are starting to recognize the others exist, and there's a lot more pen people who are interested in journaling or stickers and washi, and then journaling people who they're putting down the gel pen and picking up a fountain pen, which is cool because it's a good opportunity to learn to play with new toys and still do and enjoy the hobby you're already doing. So look forward to that. But I think I'm going to wrap it up there for this evening. I appreciate you taking some time and, for this evening. And for those of you who got pins, definitely, send some pictures over as you're using them. Hopefully you enjoy them. And then of the initial 12, there's only 2 left. Mark, I've not really seen that. You would think it would be more common, but I don't know. Like, there's a whole, the first typewriter I got, the guy I got it from, he bought it for his daughter who didn't want to use a computer, and she had been typing her school papers on a typewriter. So it seems like the analog is becoming more popular, which is a good thing in the larger sense. I know I've been trying to make a concerted effort to do less screens. Now, less screens is kind of an oxymoron when I have a YouTube channel and, do live streams and some of that, but, less streams to not doom scroll or just, waste time, things like that. And, I think there's a lot of people who are embracing the analog side. And, I know the online community is important for those who don't have local pen clubs, but even with local pen clubs, you don't always get to attend or see all the people you might be wanting to talk to about different things. So, it's beneficial, but, that's why I like doing this. We get to have a conversation and learn about shows or who's going to be where and stuff like that. So, as always, like I said, there won't be a stream next week unless for some reason I do a random pop-up. And if you see a random stream pop up, there is some testing I'm going to be doing. So it's not going to be a formal stream like this, but I want to test the software I use that I record the podcast with. It has a live streaming function that has a live Q&A option. that I'm going to play around with, but I think in order to do that, it has to be a random public stream. So, if you ever wanted to be a random slash on camera talking and testing stuff out, send me a message. I'm going to need some people to test and some people to ask questions as if they were the not on location studio audience. Cause I think that would be neat for some interviews to do like a live with the Q&A where someone can help act as a producer and kind of triage the questions to be sure that, valid questions are coming in and not spam or stuff like that. So if you see random streams popping up at some point, that's what that is. Feel free to join in and, follow along. I'll see what I can do. And I think that would be another way to incorporate, because a lot of like the second part of this stream has been talking just to you and reading the chat. And that platform is a little bit more conducive to that style. And I think I can still do some of the multi cameras and things, maybe not some of the overlay and the stream element stuff. So if you see that, that's what that is. And it'll be impromptu, but I do plan after this next week to resume the normal Thursday nights. Yeah, and Dragon Drawer, it is creating, not consuming, and I guess that is the difference. And even in terms of making videos, I do have a new Amazon Basics fountain pen that got delivered, I think yesterday or the day before, but I haven't even gone to get the package. But I thought that would be interesting to see what it is and see if it's a knockoff or if it's a Amazon branded Jinhao or if it's a Asvine or something like that. But I plan on making a video on that, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how to do a typewriter video that's not going too deep into typewriters, at the surface level, to kind of show that it's something I am really enjoying using and jumping into, but it's not necessarily, I don't want this to be a typewriter themed, experience. So still trying to figure out how to make that introduction in. And then the other thing, just as I'm wrapping up here, I am going to try and figure out how to do some random live streams while I'm in the garage making pins, even if it's just kind of turning the camera on and letting it, you see the lathe spinning or something like that. I might not be able to see chat because there's not a easy way to do some of that in there, but we'll see. I think that'd be interesting just to turn the camera on and respond when I'm able to, at least just using the phone for the time being, and then maybe add in a camera, find a way to do a computer in the garage around lathes that is not my normal computer, see if I can repurpose one of my older ones that still kind of works enough for that purpose. But that's the other things that are kind of in the works. So as always, I appreciate it. Thanks for joining in. And don't forget, if you're not on the list to receive a letter or a postcard, especially with this being NaCoWriMo, the link is pinned in the chat where you can fill out your address on the form, and I'll send you out. Mark, I'm not there yet where I need a cameraman. I don't think anybody in the stationery world gets to that point, and if they do, then they're approaching it from a full different way. But use your pens, enjoy, find a new ink, find something quirky to do with your stationery over this next week. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode or stream.